In 1964, the Addams family turned death into a punchline. They kept a pet lion, fed their houseplant raw meat, and treated a thunderstorm like a beautiful spring morning. 60 years later, the joke belongs to time. Of the 8 people who brought that house on Cemetery Lane to life, 7 are now gone. Their remains are scattered from a crypt in Anaheim, to the open ocean, to a Hollywood cemetery full of legends, to a private backyard that no one can find. And one of them, the man who played Gomez, is still alive at 96. The last Addams standing. This is where they all ended up. Number 1 is Lurch, the 7-foot butler who answered every door with a groan and 2 words. And the man inside the makeup? Ted Cassidy, who was quietly dying of the very thing that made him famous. He was 32 when the cameras rolled in 1964. Born in Pittsburgh on July 31, 1932, raised in the small town of Philippi, West Virginia, Cassidy stood 6 feet 9 inches tall, with a voice that seemed to come from somewhere underground. Both of those things, the towering height and the bottomless bass, came from acromegaly, a condition in which the body never stops producing growth hormone. It built the man Hollywood lined up to hire. It would also be the thing that killed him. Before the makeup, he was a radio announcer at WA in Dallas. On November 22, 1963, he was on the air covering the assassination of John F. Kennedy, among the first to interview eyewitnesses near Dealey Plaza. A year later, he walked onto the Addams set to play a butler, who in Charles Addams' original cartoons, never spoke at all. During the filming of the pilot, at the sound of the gong, Cassidy ad-libbed 2 words, "You rang?" And a silent monster became one of the most quoted characters on television. He played Lurch. He also played Thing the Hand in the Box. And years later, that same voice narrated The Incredible Hulk and supplied the creature's roars. Cassidy married Margaret Helen Jesse in 1956. They had 2 children and divorced in 1975. In his final years, he was cared for by an actress named Sandra Martinez. By late 1978, the acromegaly that had shaped his whole life had grown a tumor in his heart, and he went in for open-heart surgery to remove it. He never fully recovered. Ted Cassidy died on January 16, 1979, at St. Vincent Medical Center in Los Angeles. He was 46, the youngest of the entire cast to die. What happened to his body is the strangest resting place on this list. He was cremated, and his ashes were buried in the backyard of his home in Woodland Hills. The exact spot was never marked, and to this day it is not publicly known. Lurch towered over that household, unbreakable, eternal, the one who could lift a grand piano with one hand. The man who played him was gone before 50, and he lies somewhere beneath a private lawn that no visitor will ever stand on. From a butler buried in an unmarked backyard to the woman at the center of the house, the one Charles Addams chose himself, who would spend her final season acting through pain she hid from almost everyone. Number 2 is Morticia Addams, the pale, serene matriarch in the black gown, and the actress who created her, Carolyn Jones. Charles Addams' personal pick for the role, who finished her career playing scenes from a wheelchair. She was 34 when the show premiered. Born in Amarillo, Texas, on April 28, 1930, she had been a sickly, asthmatic child, kept home and taught by tutors, who turned a lonely imagination into one of the most distinctive careers of her generation. Before Morticia, she had earned an Academy Award nomination, starred opposite Elvis Presley in King Creole, and won a Golden Globe as a promising newcomer. When Addams' macabre cartoons came to television, Jones was the only Morticia he wanted. The role brought her a Golden Globe nomination and made her face permanent. Jones married 4 times. Her second husband was the television producer Aaron Spelling, and in 1982 she married her longtime love, Peter Lee Britton. By then, she was already sick. She had been diagnosed with colon cancer in 1981 and told her colleagues she was simply being treated for ulcers. She kept working anyway, playing the matriarch Myrna Clegg on the soap opera Capitol, performing her scenes from a wheelchair as the disease spread. In pain she rarely let the camera catch. She knew she was dying. She married Bailey Britton knowing it. In the summer of 1983, Carolyn Jones slipped into a coma at her home in West Hollywood. She died there on August 3, 1983, at the age of 53. She had asked that her epitaph read, "She gave joy to the world." She was cremated, and her ashes were placed in her mother's crypt at Melrose Abbey Memorial Park in Anaheim, laid to rest beside the woman who raised her. Morticia drifted through that house untouched by fear, unbothered by death, the calm, dark heart of the family. Carolyn Jones met death at 53, working until her body gave out, and was carried home to her mother. From a leading lady buried beside her mother, to the old woman in the rocking chair, who was carrying a Hollywood secret most of her castmates never knew. Number 3 is Grandmama. The cackling old witch stirring potions in the corner of the family parlor. And the actress underneath? Blossom Rock, who happened to be the older sister of one of the biggest movie stars of the 1930s. She was 69 when the show premiered, by far the oldest of the cast. Born Edith Marie Blossom McDonald in Philadelphia on August 21, 1895, she spent decades as a working character actress, often billed as Marie Blake, playing switchboard operators and bit parts in the MGM Dr. Kildare films. What audiences rarely knew was who her little sister was. The singer and screen icon, Jeanette MacDonald, one of the most famous faces in Hollywood. Bloss had started in vaudeville beside her, then built her own quiet career in her sister's shadow, and only found her greatest fame as a senior citizen, in old age makeup, as Grandmama. She married a fellow vaudevillian, Clarence Rock, in 1926. They had no children, and he died in 1960. Grandmama would be the last great role of her life. In December 1967, a little over a year after the show ended, Blossom suffered a stroke that damaged her speech. It ended her career. When the cast reunited a decade later for a 1977 television film, she was too ill to take part, and reportedly watched it from the Motion Picture and Television Country House, the industry's retirement home. Blossom Rock died there on January 14, 1978, at the age of 82, and was interred at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale. And here is the detail that lingers. Her famous little sister, Jeanette MacDonald, had died on January 4, 1965, the exact same date 13 years apart. Two sisters close in life who left the world on the same day of the year. On-screen, Grandmama was the family's ancient cackling constant. The woman who played her spent a career being the lesser-known MacDonald sister, and in the end, even shared a death date with the famous one. From a grandmother who shared a death date with her sister, to the strangest member of the household, a creature with no face, no words, and, as it turns out, no voice of his own. Number 4 is Cousin It. The walking mound of hair and sunglasses and a bowler hat who spoke in high-speed gibberish. And the tiny, fearless performer underneath? Felix Silla, who was hiding one of the great surprises of the whole cast. The voice wasn't even his. He was 27 when the show began, and joined as Cousin It in 1965. Born in a village near Rome on January 11, 1937, Silla stood 3 feet 11 inches tall and weighed about 70 pounds. He came to America in 1955 and joined the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus as a trapeze artist and tumbler before heading to Hollywood to work as a stuntman. Cousin It was invented just for the TV show. He never appeared in Charles Addams's cartoons, and Silla played him 17 times. But that famous mumbling voice was dubbed in afterward by a sound engineer named Tony Magro. Silla was the body. Someone else was the sound, and what a body of work it was. Under masks, suits, and full-body costumes, Felix Silla was everywhere in pop culture and almost never recognized. He was the robot Twiki on Buck Rogers in the 25th century. He was a hang-gliding Ewok in Return of the Jedi. He did stunt work on E.T., Poltergeist, and Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom. He married his wife, Sue, in 1965, a marriage that lasted more than half a century, raised 2 children, and in his later years, settled in Las Vegas, played harmonica in a 2-man band, and built Lego models for fun. Felix Silla died in Las Vegas on April 16, 2021 of pancreatic cancer. He was 84. He was cremated, and his ashes were scattered at sea. Cousin It was the family's most mysterious figure. No face, no name you could pronounce, no voice you could place. The man who played him was one of the most seen, least recognized performers in Hollywood history, and in the end, he was given back to the open ocean with no marker at all. If you've made it this far, take a second to subscribe. We tell one of these stories every week, and it's your subscriptions that keep the lights on. Now back to Cemetery Lane. Number 5 is Pugsley Addams. The round-faced little boy building guillotines and ray guns in the family playroom. And the child who played him, Ken Weatherwax, who came from Hollywood royalty and spent his adult life behind the camera. He was just 9 years old when the show premiered, and he played Pugsley in all 64 episodes. Born in Los Angeles on September 29, 1955, he came from a show business family. His aunt was the actress and dancer Ruby Keeler, and his half-brother Joey D. Vieira had played Porky in the original Lassie, but fame at 9 came with a price. Weatherwax was teased at school over the name Pugsley, and when the show ended, he found, like so many child stars, that no one would hire him as anything else. At 17, he joined the Army. When he came home, he stepped behind the camera and built a quiet career as a grip and set builder. He never lost the family, though, not the real one. He and Lisa Loring, the little girl who had played his sister Wednesday, stayed close for the rest of their lives, appearing together at Addams Family fan events decades after the cameras stopped rolling. He retired a few years before his death for medical reasons. On December 7, 2014, Ken Weatherwax was found dead at his home in Box Canyon, California. He was 59. His family said he had suffered a heart attack. The Ventura County Coroner's Office ruled the death from natural causes. He was laid to rest at Valhalla Memorial Park Cemetery. Pugsley was the family's gleeful little inventor, frozen forever at 9 years old in black and white. The man who played him grew up, served his country, built movie sets, and quietly outlived most of the household before dying at 59. From a Pugsley who stayed loyal to his TV sister for life, to the sister herself, the original Wednesday, who would be both the last of the cast to leave and one of the most recent. Number 6 is Wednesday Addams. The solemn little girl in the black dress with the long braids, the original, the one every later Wednesday is measured against. Played by Lisa Loring, who started acting before she could really read and died only 3 years ago. She was 6 years old when the show premiered. Born Lisa Ann DeCinces on the remote Kwajalein Atoll in the Pacific on February 16, 1958, she had begun appearing on television at the age of 3. As Wednesday, she created the deadpan blueprint, the flat stare, the quiet menace, the doll named after a headless queen, that Christina Ricci and decades later Jenna Ortega would each reinterpret for a new generation. After the Addams Family, she grew up on screen, spending in the early 1980s as a regular on the soap opera As the World Turns. And, as we just heard, she and Ken Weatherwax, her TV brother, remained lifelong friends. Loring married 4 times and had 2 daughters. Her life off camera was not always an easy one, but to fans at conventions she was by every account warm and generous, signing photographs of a little girl she had first played 60 years earlier. Lisa Loring died on January 28, 2023 in Burbank, California at the age of 64. Her daughter Vanessa confirmed the cause was a stroke. She was the most recent of the entire cast to pass away. She was cremated, and her ashes were later interred at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, resting among the legends of the industry she had joined as a toddler. Wednesday Addams was eternal, ageless, the unsmiling child who never grew up. Lisa Loring carried that child with her for 6 decades and was the last of the family to lay it down. From the youngest face on the call sheet to the oldest soul on it, a man who was the very first movie star Hollywood ever made and the one it very nearly destroyed. Number 7 is Uncle Fester. The bald, bulb-swallowing oddball who could light a light bulb just by putting it in his mouth. And the man who played him? Jackie Coogan, whose real life changed American law. He was 49 when the show premiered, turning 50 a month into the run, but his story had begun almost half a century earlier. Born in Los Angeles on October 26, 1914, Jackie Coogan was, quite literally, the first major child star in the history of the movies. Charlie Chaplin discovered him on a vaudeville stage, and cast him at 7 years old as the title character in the 1921 silent classic The Kid. The film made him world famous, and it made him a fortune, millions of dollars, an unthinkable sum for a child in the 1920s. Then it was taken. When Coogan grew up and went looking for his money, he discovered that his mother and stepfather had spent almost all of it. He sued them in 1938 and walked away with a tiny fraction of what he had earned. But the public outrage over what had happened pushed California to pass the Child Actors Bill, known forever after as the Coogan Law, the first legislation written to protect the earnings of child performers. Every young actor working today is protected by a law named after the man who would become Uncle Fester. Coogan married 4 times, the first to the pin-up legend Betty Grable, and had 4 children. He flew as a glider pilot in World War II, and in middle age, decades after his fortune vanished, a whole new generation met him as the gleeful Electric Fester. Jackie Coogan died on March 1, 1984, in Santa Monica of heart failure. He was 69. At his funeral, which he had asked to be open to the public, one of the eulogies was delivered by his Addams Family co-star, a man named John Astin. Coogan was buried at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City. On screen, Uncle Fester was the family's harmless, sparking clown. In life, Jackie Coogan was the child the movie industry built first and robbed worst, and the reason there is now a law to keep it from happening to a child the same way again. And the man who stood up to eulogize Jackie Coogan that day? He is the last one still here. Number 8 is Gomez Addams, the mustachioed, cigar-smoking, sword-fighting patriarch who kissed his way up Morticia's arm. And the man who has carried him for 60 years? John Astin, who is still with us at 96, the sole surviving member of the original cast. He was 34 when he became Gomez. Born in Baltimore on March 30th, 1930, he was the son of a physicist who ran the National Bureau of Standards, and he went to Johns Hopkins to study mathematics before the theater pulled him away for good. Gomez made him a star and typecast him for life as a lovable eccentric, a niche he leaned into happily, returning to the role again and again across cartoons, reunions, and revivals, and later playing the father of the judge on Night Court. He even earned an Academy Award nomination for a short film he directed. His life off-screen reads like its own movie. His second wife was the Oscar-winning actress Patty Duke, and Astin became the adoptive father of her son, the actor Sean Astin, of The Goonies and The Lord of the Rings, raising him from the age of 3 alongside their own son Mackenzie. In a strange piece of symmetry, 3 generations of the family would later go on to work with the director Peter Jackson. But here is the turn that sets John Astin apart from everyone else on this list. He went home. He returned to Johns Hopkins, the university he had left to become an actor, and for 20 years he was a professor there, running its theater program, teaching young actors, directing student plays. In 2011, the school named one of its theaters after him. Today, he lives in Baltimore with his wife. He is a vegetarian, a practicing Buddhist, and a lifelong devotee of Edgar Allan Poe. Gomez Addams was the beating, joyful heart of that house, a man madly in love with his wife and his strange, happy life. The man who played him is 96 years old, has a theater that bears his name, and is the last of the Addams family still standing. If you grew up watching this family, leave a comment and tell me which one hit you the hardest now that you know how their story ended, and which Wednesday you'll always picture first. I read every single one. They took a haunted house and turned it into the happiest home on television. 60 years on, here is where they all went. Ted Cassidy, under an unmarked patch of his own backyard in Woodland Hills. Carolyn Jones in her mother's crypt in Anaheim. Blossom Rock at Forest Lawn, sharing a death date with her famous sister. Felix Silla scattered across the open sea. Ken Weatherwax at Valhalla. Lisa Loring, among the legends at Hollywood forever. Jackie Coogan, the first child star, finally at rest at Holy Cross. And John Astin, still in Baltimore, still teaching, still Gomez. 7 of them have gone home. One of them is still keeping the lights on at Cemetery Lane.